Today on the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, we're talking about episode 5 of Moon Knight. Welcome to the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. My name is Matthew Carroll.
And I am Brian V. Klein.
How you doing, Brian?
Oh, I don't know. I'm kind of, I think I'm in two minds right now of what's going on after that episode. So
Of two minds, eh? Yeah,
pretty fitting. At least two minds.
I am incredibly sad.
Yeah.
I am just incredible. I mean, it was such a hard episode, like from the top, but the way it ended, I can't believe it. I did not expect that. I knew, okay, spoiler alert, we're going to get into episode 5, so don't let us spoil you. But man, Steven, I guess, is dead, as far as best we can tell. Now, he died in an ethereal plane, and he's a part of Mark's consciousness. So, like, not to say he can't return, but it seemed that, like, Steven, part of Mark balancing himself was to get rid of the Steven personality, right? Like, that seems like what's like the Steven personality needed to sacrifice itself so that Mark could become one or something like that. Like, that's what it seems like they're going for.
That seemed like it, yeah, because it seemed like because Steven was born out of dealing with trauma in Mark's real life, so it's sort of like you get rid of that part of it, it sort of balances himself.
Yeah, and helping Mark have a part of himself that was sort of kept away from the trauma, and then kept safe from the trauma. And he even says, like, that's what you were for, you know?
Yeah, you're not supposed to see any of the bad stuff, in a sense.
And now that he's seen the bad stuff, like, he's outlived his purpose in a way. Like, he's no longer the pure Steven that he was supposed to be. And Mark, and it was as soon as he flew over the railings that his heart immediately balanced, you know?
Right.
It's terrible. I don't want this. I love the show. I really love the show, but I really don't want Steven to be gone, you know?
I think they'll find, I mean, we still have an episode left, and obviously they do this, so for the next 7 days we'll be talking about it and be, you know, mourning Steven, because he was the main focal point. We saw the first episode for the whole time, and I don't think they're just going to, I hope that they're not just gonna, you know, that character's gone. But again, as we'll reiterate pretty much in every review we've done of this show, Oscar Isaac, my God, that guy. His acting is just unreal, man.
Yeah. The facial acting that I saw this episode, when he is Mark inside the hospital trying to, like, wrestle with whether all this is real or not, and his face is just so emotive, and, like, him looking at the doctor so skeptically, his eyes super wide, like, he's playing layer on layer on layer, you know? We have these two completely different characters he's playing, and then they're both going through multiple mental states, you know, and environments, and it's amazing acting.
Yeah, and we'll probably, again, we still haven't delved into that third personality that's still in the sarcophagus, which I'm thinking he'll find it and unleash it now that Steven is, I'm just going to use it, temporarily incapacitated. So we'll see probably the more violent side. I mean, we saw in this episode that Mark basically was a mercenary, but he was sort of like, he did it for the reasons why he was punishing the people per Khonshu's, you know, wishes afterwards, beforehand. But he even said that was straight out of the Lemire run too, with him being like, he didn't want to, when he was working for Bushman, he didn't want to kill these people. He wanted to do what they were set to do, but that's when they went off the rails and got himself killed. So Mark in himself is not a bad person. He's not the violent, just kill everyone kind of guy. You might think that that's the third personality. So it's kind of a redeeming and kind of a sigh of relief to see that Mark isn't just like the monster that Steven seems to think he is.
Yeah. And I think Steven's definitely gotten over that at this point. Steven, I mean, they're brothers, you know, like he's been his big brother all this time, watching out for him, making sure he's safe, making sure there's that sort of safe place to go. And it's protecting himself while creating this like other personality that is like a brother to him now. And I said it last episode, but when they hug, I just didn't know how badly I needed that hug, you know? And they opened this episode with the, last time on little thing. And they really focused on that hug. And I was just like, oh, I needed that. And like seeing them work together and push against each other this episode and like try to hide Mark constantly trying to hide things from Steven. Man.
Yeah, I would want to hide those memories too, man. Those were brutal and deep, man.
Yeah. We're spending all the time talking about Steven's death or incapacitation, as you say, but like the actual memories that we learned about, the things that created the DID. We've been talking about it since the beginning of the show. Where does the DID come from? Was it Khonshu or was it created as a child? And like this episode went so dark.
Oh, I know. Although at least one of the redeeming things is I liked when Mark was getting attacked by his former, all the people he had killed, the sand monsters, and Steven came to the revelation, like, listen, if it's in him, it's in me. And then he went and whooped some butt for a bit. So, and then he's just like, I got this. Dude, he's a cricket player, so he's beating the crap out of him that way.
He yelled 6, and he's like, I prefer cricket. That's such a funny line, because if you think about it from like the perspective of, Mark being this American guy creating a British guy, and him being like, I prefer cricket. Like, it's just so funny. It's so funny. But yeah, I loved that. And I kind of want to see in the next episode, Mark have the realization that like Layla maybe says like, I wish Steven were here. We need Steven to solve this. And Mark say, well, if Steven's part of me, if Steven can do it, I can do it. And he starts solving some like crazy, Egyptian riddle or whatever.
Right. And even in some of the runs too, the personalities that Mark has are all, they work with each other. And the ones that are sort of more needed in that situation come to the forefront. There's not a lot of fighting between them. Sometimes. They have been, in a lot of cases in this episode too, as I've mentioned this before and even earlier, is that they are pulling a lot from the Jeff Lemire run. A lot of his backstory with the Jewish parents and the whole, that's just been his, backstory, him being from Chicago. His dad's a rabbi and stuff like that. The whole part with the mom and the brother, I don't remember seeing any of that before. So they used that as a trauma because in a lot of the runs, his mental state just came from, it just was. Some people just have that. It's not from any type of situation or any type of trauma. This was built out of a necessity to deal with what was going on. The way that his mom treated him. And we had a therapist write in a few weeks ago who told us that was the most common way that DID manifests is early childhood trauma that causes DID to manifest. Right. And so it's interesting that they went that way. I know in the comics, there's other ways that, like, I believe Ashley was talking about a version of the story where, it's the Khonshu, it's the actual interaction with Khonshu that sort of creates the personalities. Yes, there is something like that. But I think the way that they did it in this show is a lot more true to real life. And it's a good, way to get this out there into the public consciousness of how things like this happen and how it's not, it's a I wouldn't say normal, but it's just the way things are sometimes, and you just have to. It's a little more grounded and reality based. So, kudos to them. Yeah, for sure. And it's so cathartic to see these scenes of these two characters running around and trying to come to terms with each other in like a physical way. Like so many episodes that are like this in sci-fi and where they go into someone's mind or whatever, they kind of fall flat because it's like, oh yeah, you're just doing the thing. But something about the two of them together, like, and the fact that they've been separated
by this gulf, of of being in the same body, but now being together for this episode and getting to like kind of fight side by side to try to solve the problem and like try to communicate and try to come to terms with each other. There's just something so cathartic about it. I really, really, I was impressed through the entire episode, and Steven's death at the end affected me in a big way. I've said this many times on cast, but one of the most important things about character deaths and making them matter, making them hurt, I should say, and making you fear character deaths is loving watching that character. Because when there's a character you just love to watch on screen, it's just funny and fun and just interesting and just wonderful acting or whatever the thing may be. Then when you see them, when they're close to death, you really fear, because it's not just a fear for like putting yourself in the story, but you're also just fearful because you're like losing a friend. You know what I mean? Right. And I really feel like in a big way, like if Steven is gone, if he's gone from this show, I feel like I lost my friend Steven, and I am so bummed to see Steven, go. I think we'll get to see him in some form in the future. I can't imagine this is all for Steven, but
no, especially because they did the thing too, where he had the major revelation at the end, and that I can do this, and yes, and then they take it away from you. It's the hallmark of a great show, something like that. They evoke so many emotions. You had joy, you had excitement, you had sorrow, you had, oh my God, and this show, I hope they don't, we only got one episode left, and hopefully it's not just one of those ones where it ends and you're like, oh, what? So, I mean, I think that they've been hitting all the strides. They know what they know this game so far. They've been working with, a year or so of seeing what Disney Plus shows can do. I think they're going to end on a high note, and maybe even a big cliffhanger that'll lead into something with the movies or something. So, but it's just like so much talking, which I love about why Disney Plus brought back the binge, or got rid of the binge method, got the weekly talking. If we would have had all 6 episodes in a row, there would be no talk between them other than just like, all right, like how when you do like, say, like Umbrella Academy or something. Yeah. You watch an episode, you do a podcast. You watch an episode, you do a podcast. There's not a lot of that big dialogue between it. This Disney Plus method and a lot of the streaming shows have been doing that as well. Like Amazon Prime went to the weekly method.
I totally agree.
Because it gets so much, it's out there now, and some people don't like it. I love it because it gives you a chance. I think I watched episode 4 probably 10 times now.
Right? Yeah, I have watched it so much.
Yeah, I never did that with any of like the Netflix shows or stuff like that, because it's like you watch it, you're done, okay, good. You might go back and watch it again.
You're hungry for the next episode, so you're rewatching the last one, like just waiting to see, wanting to know what happens next. And I mean, obviously we're podcasters, so it's like the preferred method for us. But before I was a podcaster, I was a guy who liked to me and David Robertson of the DC on Screen podcast, since we were 5 and 6 years old, we would just wander around after church and just talk for hours about what was going to happen next week on Star Trek, and that's what I've been doing this, thing of like week to week talking about what's going to happen next, what's going to happen in this show that we love. And that's the fun thing to do, that water cooler talk that I've been doing. For me, it's like, it really always is Sunday after church talk. Like we would just we'd go to church, and that was when I'd get to see my buddy Dave, and we'd just walk around for an hour while the parents were mingling. We were just walking around talking about whatever, Star Trek, Batman, all those things. And so it's so rewarding to be able to do that for such great content that they're putting out every week. It's just amazing.
Right. On that note, there's something I did not realize that Courtney in the chat brought up, and she said, how sad was the movie poster for that, what was it, the Tomb Buster or whatever, where that Dr. Stephen Grant is, and on the tagline is, where there's fear, Stephen Grant is here. So that just, not only in that movie poster, but that's Mark's life.
I think it was, when Stephen Grant is here, there is no fear, or something like that, or he has no fear, or something like that. Created a persona based on that character, which is what we talked about last week after seeing that little clip. it's terrible. Him realizing he's the alternate and not the core personality.
Right. It's so many feels after seeing this. Although they did delve deep into a lot of the backstory of him and just his, again, and the way that they do it too, with Tauredet saying, listen, you have to balance yourself out, make yourself whole, which is why you get to see all this stuff, and Steven being inquisitive of what's going on, Mark trying to protect him from it because this is the stuff he wasn't supposed to see his whole life. That's the reason why he's there. And it just it gets you so, it hit me so many times watching this going like, man, this has got to just be tough for Mark seeing this again. And then the Steven personality going like, he might understand Mark a little bit better now. Is going, okay, this is, wow, yours, again, kids being kids. The bottom line was, what was his brother's name? Roro? Or I think that's the only thing they called. His death was Mark's fault for them going to the caves when they weren't supposed to when it's raining. But Mark's even said, oh, we'll be okay. But you can't really play a lot of that on an 8 or 9-year-old kid because, that's going to traumatize them for life, which it did, but it didn't help that the mom blamed him and kept letting him know this is your fault and beating him. And
I think that's what really drove him to the DID and drove him to be traumatized in that way. Because if it wasn't, we really started seeing Steven in that room, like hiding from his mom, that's, I think, where the split happened. I don't think, his brother's death was tragic, but it's like tragedies happen and children can cope if they're given the right coping strategies and they're given the right support. But his mother just completely didn't give him what he needed and really like destroyed him as a child. And that's terrible. Early in the season, Layla says, you're talking to your mom again, it clearly they were, even before her death, they were estranged because he couldn't go back there, after the way he was treated. That's a tough one, man. That's a really tough. What an origin story.
Right.
I'm really curious to see how Ashley feels about this episode because it's so, she's been waiting for this episode. She's been saying like, I want to see the episode where he like actually meets Khonshu and like, I want to see that flashback. And we get to see that this episode, but it's couched in so much trauma and horrible, like emotions that, it's tough.
Yeah. It's, again, hallmark of a great show, the way that they've been just hitting it. The people that are waiting to watch this all in one sitting for the first time are going to go through so many emotions in those 6 hours that they watch it because it just hits you on. This was definitely the emotional turn. And I got to also think too, and this is a little foreshadowing, when they were sitting there on the boat and Tauredet's like, something's going on. People are being judged in the real life a lot sooner than they should be. I'm assuming that means that Harrow succeeded and Amit's awake and starting to just, you're dead. And so they're just popping up like crazy like that. Right?
Yeah, I think so too. Cool. That is definitely what it seemed like. And you see a lot of it too. Like these like it looks like shooting stars are shooting down and like falling into the underworld. So yeah, what happens when Amit is awake?
Yeah. It's wait till next week. Hopefully, it's one of those things. I hope next week when we turn on the show, it says like an hour and 45 minutes. Like, right, we got like a full movie now.
I need a full movie as the end of the show. Yes, please. It's gonna be 2 a.m. next week. I'm gonna be like, I'm down. Let's go to 6 a.m. I'm down.
Let's do this whole thing. Probably won't be, but we can.
No,
wish, so.
we can wish. We can hope. As people who are tagging us over here on Twitch, we got Court OB says they teased us so bad with the third alt and the taxis. You notice all that when there were like 3 or 4 moments in the show where there was a taxi in the background of different scenes, and as many of us know, the Jake alternate in comics is a taxi driver, so that was fun.
And he's usually the guy that's like the real, just out for vengeance type guy.
That's rad. Yeah.
So that fits perfectly in that third personality for this show.
For sure. Yeah. I'm really interested to see how he relates to Khonshu, and like, is he the even more desired personality? Like, is Khonshu like, yeah, this is my guy, you know, like, and Mark's good, but Jake is the guy I really want to work with. Let's keep Jake in that driver's seat as much as possible.
Right. Which is probably why when he needs to be brought out, Khonshu's going to know about it, but he's not telling Mark, because it's just like, because then Mark could be fighting against that. So, well,
and Mark has exactly just like Steven fought against Mark when he found out. If Mark knows there's a personality that is more violent and less principled, you know what I mean? That's interesting. I think it's so much fun. Cordoby also says subtitles said Randall when he spoke. Okay. Thought of Jeff. I'm guessing somewhere in the show. I don't know who Randall was. Oh,
that was probably for the brother.
Roro. Yeah.
Roro was Randall. So
yeah. Well, I'm really hoping. I'm going to try to see if Jeff can hop on next week and do the finale with us, because I know he's been watching the show and loving it. So cool. I'm not sure if he'll be able to or not. His computer setup is a little messed up. So I've been telling him he can come over to my house and do it, but that may or may not work in the middle of the night. I don't know. Come to my house at 2 a.m. till 5 a.m. Yeah. It would be fun.
Won't be too bad.
Nah. But either way, we'll hopefully get Jeff on in the next week or two to talk through some of this. And he's definitely going to be on Multiverse of Madness next week. So that's exciting.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, well, that's all the things I see from the people tagged us in. Any last thoughts, BVK, before we move on to sleep time?
They keep bringing back a little bit of some of the comic stuff. And it was when Mark was sitting there and they were arguing, and he mentions Crowley. Crowley's one of his guys who I had mentioned before is the gold statue man. Yeah. And in the first scene, when we go last episode into the hospital, he's sitting there standing and yelling at someone or talking to someone. That's Crowley's character. That's the actor that plays the gold statue man. And Crowley is pretty much one of Mark's man on the street type of, contacts. So pretty much a lot of the stuff, even if they don't use it on the phone in the first issue, it said Layla, or episode said Layla Duchamp. JP Duchamp's another one of his contacts he has. So at least they're referencing a lot of this stuff. Yeah. And a lot of the other things they mentioned, like I had said about him with the tomb and Bushman, and just him wanting to protect and not kill the archaeologists, which caused him to die, which caused him to get to the tomb of Khonshu. That's straight. I mean, that's pulled directly from the comic. So
Bushman is not... Okay, there's Bushmaster is what I'm thinking of.
Right, that was the one from Luke Cage.
Luke Cage. Okay,
right. Yeah. Bushman, and the way he says it here is that that was his CO in the army, and in the comics it was just he was a mercenary that liked what Mark and Duchamp were doing on jobs, and so they pull him into this bigger job, which they were just even sort of like, we don't want to do it, but Mark's like, well, let's see how much there's money into it, and then it ends up getting him killed. So,
yeah. Huh. Oh man, I'm excited. Yeah, if you guys want to know more about the comics, go check out Source Pages. They did it with 3 episodes on Moon Knight. Is that right?
We did 3 episodes on the Lemire run, which they are pulling heavily from in this show. Last week we released an Age of Khonshu episode, which is just really wacky. It's a more recent run, and just for people that are listening to the show, we just released one last night, which is a primer for America Chavez.
Yeah, I saw that.
She is going to be introduced in the MCU in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness next week. So it'll just give you a little backstory on who this character is and what her power set is and just who she is. It's a cool character to introduce. You'll see why there's some of the controversy of why Doctor Strange is not being played in some countries. So again, the world we live in. So because of the sexual orientation, and she had 2 moms and stuff like that, it's just ridiculous. But hey,
yep,
the world we live in 2022 it sucks, bud.
It really does. But this type of media being bold enough to put some of that representation out there is what changes things. Like it really is like one of the biggest things that changes things is just people seeing representation, not only for the people that are already in that community, but like people that don't understand it, getting a chance to see it. Sometimes that can really impact people. So hopefully this will get out to the world. I think even in the countries where it's banned, it'll probably get seen because people love Marvel.
Yeah.
So
people that want to see it will see it some way or another. It's the internet's out there. So.
All right, man. Yeah. Well, thanks for being here, BBK. You guys check out Source Pages. Brian V. Klein and Haley Hobbs over there holding it down, bringing all the comics love to the Stranded Panda Network. And we'll be back sometime this week with more Moon Knight. And I think I'm going to have a commissioned episode drop in the feed later this week. So stick around, hang out. We'll be back. Peace.
Until next time, true believers.
Thank you for joining us for the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, available everywhere you get podcasts, and now a video version streaming live on twitch.tv/strandedpandatv and available at youtube.com/strandedpanda. And if you'd like to learn more about all of our other podcasts, geeky projects, and ways to support the network, visit strandedpanda.com.